Hello and a warm welcome to this edition of Africa 360. My name is Kwangu Liwewe. Nigerians mark the start of a new political era as Major General Muhammadu Buhari rises to the presidency. The leader of the opposition, APC, is the first Nigerian to oust a president through the ballot box. Before we get into our discussion, let's give you some insight into the man who is now in charge of Africa's biggest economy.
Boisterous crowds packed the streets, some climbing lampposts and walls, while others danced through the night. These were the jovial scenes in Nigeria after leader of the opposition All Progressives Congress, Muhammadu Buhari, was declared the winner of last week's presidential election. Born in December 1942 in Daura in northern Katsina state, Major General Muhammadu Buhari is a former military ruler. He entered politics in 1976 as a minister in former President Olusegun Obasanjo's cabinet. In 1983, he came to power through an almost bloodless coup. He headed Nigeria's military government for 2 years before he was deposed from power in yet another coup led by General Ibrahim Babangida.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. Please sit down.
During his tenure, he earned a reputation for a no-nonsense approach to corruption, though many viewed his crackdown on those opposed to him as draconian. Nigeria returned to civilian rule in 1999. And since then, Buhari has tried and failed 3 times to reclaim the presidency. But it seems his patience paid off at his 4th attempt. Many will now be expecting him to unite Nigeria, a country deeply divided along ethnic lines. Most importantly will be how he deals with security concerns, particularly the Boko Haram insurgency, Nigeria's boogeyman. Praise and congratulations have been pouring in for Buhari. Among the first well-wishers was his rival Goodluck Jonathan himself, a gesture which some believe symbolizes Nigeria's maturing democracy, and a move which adds a positive glow to Goodluck Jonathan's rather precarious 5 years in office. The result makes Jonathan the first incumbent to lose a presidential election in Africa's most populous country since Nigeria returned to democracy in 1999.
I'm now joined by Olanyini Abodedele, who is the publisher of the Nigerian Voice newspaper here in South Africa, and Ekos Akpokabayan, who is the deputy chairperson of the South African chapter of the People's Democratic Party. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us. Ekos, let me start with you. Now, did it come to you as a surprise that your leader, Goodluck Jonathan, lost this poll?
Yes, it came as an absolute surprise to me, although the signs were there. And first of all, I must congratulate the new leader, Buhari, for the victory. I think the major problem we lost the election was because of the insecurity. Nigerians were not used to terrorism, Boko Haram, and they showed it through the elections.
Do you agree with him, or were there other reasons why the PDP candidate lost the polls?
I would disagree with him. I feel there are other reasons why the PDP lost the election. Yes, the security reason is number one. Then also the issue of corruption in Nigeria is on a high, and people were worried about that. Then even apart from the security and corruption issue, I think also President Jonathan surrounded himself with people which the Nigerian populace do not agree with. And I think that is another big factor that affected President Jonathan losing the election.
Now, when we look at the... Yes.
Come on, when you talk about corruption, I mean, let's talk with facts and what the president has been saying. If you look from 1960, when we got our independence, to 2005, a report came out that Nigeria had lost about $5 trillion through corruption. And those happened from 1999 until 2005. We had lost about 90% of that amount. So when you see the figures, people are shouting corruption. And what the president has said consistently, he said, fighting corruption all these years has not brought any result. he had brought in mechanism to prevent corruption. And we have seen that. We've seen that recently in the country. Fighting corruption doesn't bring any result, and I don't think that played a lot of role in this victory. I think what played a lot of role was the Northerners' insecurity and the Boko Haram.
But we saw in the past 6 weeks the election was delayed for 6 weeks, and we have seen the Joint Task Force actually making some milestones when it comes to crushing Boko Haram. So why was security still an issue when clearly they are seen to be probably winning the war against Boko Haram?
We heard a lot of people saying, if you can do it in 6 weeks, why didn't you do it all this while? But there's a lot of stories behind that, why it wasn't done all this while. Because if you know and if you've been following Boko Haram, it was growing and it was taking different phases. And you admit that now that we had equipment, the fight with Boko Haram, with the UN coming in, the regional forces, we can see the improvement, and that takes a lot of time.
Maybe you can come in here, and now let's look at the whole electoral process under the watchful eye of INEC. And of course, INEC did organize these elections. Some people are saying, actually, PDP, we saw some people who were actually complaining, at least saying that the election was rigged, more or less rigged. How do you respond to this?
Well, anyway, I wouldn't agree with that. I think Professor Jega did a very good job. As we all know, this is the first time Nigeria is going digital in terms of election, which I feel is a process where we have to start from somewhere, and we've actually started from somewhere. And as time goes on, we'll continue to perfect that. I don't want to dwell on the issue of election being rigged or no election being rigged. There's a victory. Someone has won the election, and both parties are allowed have agreed to that. So, I mean, going back to rigging or no rigging, I don't think it's an issue on the table, because apparently nobody's crying foul as well. Because, I mean, the APC can also point accusing fingers to the PDP, where some figures were coming out and where people are just surprised where these figures are coming out from the southwest and the southeast as well.
Yes, we accept the opposition and the new leader, but, you know, it's an old crop.
Let's take a break there, and when we come back, we'll carry on that point.
I would like to believe that he is really a born-again Democrat, and that he will have the patience.
Welcome back. You're watching Africa 360, and today we're focusing on Nigeria and its new political era following Buhari's landslide election victory. And I'm still joined by my two guests here in studio. Also joining us in this segment is Martin Iwi. He's from the Institute for Security Studies. He joins us from our Pretoria studios. Welcome, Mr. Iwi. Let's go straight into it. We had Mr. Echoes before the break talking about recycled politicians and more or less alluding that Buhari at the age of 72 is pretty old. Did his victory come as a surprise to you?
Not really. I won't put his age as a problem. We've had many leaders at that age. Even if you remember, President Nelson Mandela took over at an age which was also close to that. And he was still able to rule for 4 years.
But he's a second-time president in terms of Buhari. It's the second time around.
Yes, it is his second time, that's true. But I don't think that really works negatively on his side. I think it's a plus for him.
Maybe you can come in here. Some have been talking about, in fact, Buhari during the campaign was saying he has reinvented himself as a Democrat. We know about his past when he ruled the country and how he ruled it with an iron fist. Has he truly changed?
Well, I believe so. I believe he's changed. He's a Democrat. He said that. And by the things he's been doing, we see that. And don't forget, the honest truth is Nigeria needs a leader that can rule, a tough leader to rule that country. You know, and I think General Muhammadu Buhari is just the right person to lead Nigeria.
Come on, you know, now everybody says everything. I mean, to be honest, in 2011, when he lost the election, we saw a different reaction. If it was the APC that lost this election, we won't see the peace we're seeing in Nigeria at the moment. I mean, that's obvious. And, you know, it was a campaign for anything to get Jonathan out. And it was obvious. So everybody was jumping on the wagon to support Buhari, even if he was 100 years old, because that was the alternative. And for me, and for us in the PDP, we quite understand that. But, you know, we'll assess him as time goes on. He's won the election. We'll try to support him. But I think, you know, people didn't have enough time to assess the man. A lot of the people who voted him just wanted Jonathan out.
I will disagree with that, with the issue of the 2011 he just mentioned, because I can remember vividly well that the same accusation was laid against General Muhammadu Buhari by Reuben Abati, you know, the Reuben Abati. And Buhari actually took them to court.
Mr. Iwe, maybe you can come in here and talk a little bit about Buhari's war against indiscipline when he was president. Is this exactly what a country like Nigeria, which has complex issues, needs?
Well, Nigeria is no longer under a military rule, and a straitjacket approach will be a little difficult, which is what Buhari is bringing on board. I would like to believe that he is really a born-again Democrat, and that he will have the patience to work with democratic institutions to get his mandate achieved. But if he is still going to come in with the memory of 1983, 1985, he will have a lot of problems. Because don't forget, Buhari has won the elections. If you look at those in his camp, I don't differentiate them from PDP. These are some of the same people that have been ruling Nigeria, or that have been in the Nigerian politics for quite a while. And these people will want to do things their way, which might turn out to frustrate Buhari. So he will really have to he will need some time, you know, in order to adapt to the new political context, which he will rule Nigeria.
Now the hard work begins, obviously. He's won the election. Let's look at the key issues in Nigeria. And one of them, of course, is Boko Haram. Buhari did say during his campaign trail that he's not willing to negotiate with them. Do we expect to see a full onslaught on this terrorist group?
Well, I think so. General Muhammadu Buhari has made this known from day one. And if we go back in history, when he was president in 1983, and Nigeria had a similar case. I mean, we all know what General Buhari did. He's a military man, he's a trained military man, and he has said it. And we believe General Muhammadu Buhari, we believe he can do it.
Martin Iwe, let me take you back to the Boko Haram issue. And there was some speculation, of course, and it's been there for a couple of years, that Buhari is actually sympathetic towards the group. Now, let's take this forward, and if he does manage to quail this Boko Haram insurgency, surely some people think he's always had a hand in it.
Well, yeah, I think Buhari has been accused many times for being sympathetic, and I think this has been because of sometimes his silence towards the issue. He has not been, at the beginning, categorical in terms of condemning the group, but I don't think he's the only Muslim to have done that. We realized it was a common problem for northern elite who were not very quick in coming out to condemn Boko Haram. But now that he's on board, people are looking forward to it, and some are actually saying he might be the best man.
Is that because of his military background?
Because of his military background, and because of the fact that he's not going to have any complexes that he's, you know, fighting Muslims. Because it was difficult for Jonathan, being from the other side, the Christian background, which each time he has a confrontation with Boko Haram or wants to really broaden the fight against Boko Haram, he's accused of confronting or opposing Muslims. Buhari will not have this. Remember, if we look back at what President Musa Yar'Adua did, he was very categorical. His approach was really to obliterate Boko Haram. I don't think a Christian would have done what he did. So we expect that Buhari will come with an approach which will be even more sweeping than what Yar'Adua did in 2009.
Still on security, just before we go to the break, I need to push this one in quickly. Obviously, Goodluck Jonathan's from the Niger Delta, and we know what happened before his presidency in that region in terms of MEND. Some people are speculating that maybe MEND will take up arms again now that their homeboy from the southern part of the country is no longer leader.
That's an obvious fact. We don't want that to happen, but it depends on the policies that are in place to protect and prevent that are not removed. Once they begin to feel disenfranchised by the new president, and then you can see more deadly, even more than the men springing up. So we must be very careful. We're speaking about Boko Haram now. We might be going back, speaking about a more deadly force from the Niger Delta, because they also have a legitimate claim due to resources. And most of the resources in Nigeria comes from that area.
Gentlemen, let's take a break. Do join us after the break, because when we return, we'll look at some of the issues that Buhari will have to face as president.
For us to move forward, I think we honestly speaking, we need to forget the past. We all need to come together, irrespective of our ethnicity, irrespective of our religion.
Welcome back to Africa 360. Let's now look at some of the challenges that Nigeria's new leader, Muhammadu Buhari, is likely to face. Let's bring in Dr. Richard Ero-Anya to this conversation. He's from the University of Pretoria. Olanini Abodedele is still with us here in our Johannesburg studios, and Martin Iwi joins us once more from Pretoria. Welcome to the show. And we'll start with you. Now let's look at the key challenges, and one of that, of course, is the economy, which we see has been adversely affected by the falling prices of oil. What's Buhari going to do about this?
Well, Buhari is not a new person when it comes to managing the Nigerian economy. You know, as some of the participants here in this forum have said, that he was once a military head of state of the country for almost 2 years. And so in that period, I think he was able to build, about 2 refineries, that helped the growth of the economy. The economy was okay under his administration, military administration. But this is a new dispensation, and we are going to witness quite a number of challenges that is going to, the face. The falling oil price is one of them, and he has promised that he will ensure that the naira appreciates again, and he will ensure that international oil market is stabilized, and he can do that by making sure that the Niger Delta region does not envelop again in crisis. And if that happens, he will be able to maintain a kind of stability in the oil. Though many people did not understand what he actually meant by that. And I think Buhari is going to immerse in some of these challenges, and he will do well.
It's been decades since we've been hearing about this ailing power sector in the country, and still the presidents haven't managed to deal with this. How can Buhari actually tackle issues such as the power sector and unemployment?
Well, anyway, General Muhammadu Buhari and Professor Yemi Osinbajo have said it. They are also going to look towards privatization. I mean, Lagos State and some states have actually tried this out. Like if you go to Lagos State now, within the mainland and some areas of there are actually private electricity supplies that supplies the industrial area of Lagos State, and it's working perfectly. So, I mean, Buhari have said that privatization is the way. The sector is going. I mean, Jonathan has already privatized the sector, but he feels he has to build more on that. Where people will come in, international investors in the electricity sector, and then we'll start to witness an improvement in electricity.
Dr. Iwi, let's go to your speciality, of course, which is security, and talking about the north of the country. A lot of people there are disenfranchised. A lot of people there are unemployed. There's massive poverty in that area. And as he's just alluded to the fact that they hope to bring in investors, but would an investor actually go to the north of the country to invest within security there?
Yeah, I think everything else would depend on the security situation of Nigeria, which is why I think it's the topmost priority for the new leader to tackle, because if we still have Boko Haram and other groups, we are now talking about the Niger Delta militants. If those groups were to escalate again, then we will run into a lot of trouble. in terms of dealing with issues such as the economy, the employment, electricity, and all else. Because without security, you can't talk about development, you can't talk about stability. So I think that Buhari will have to, first and foremost, address the issue of Boko Haram and the issue of militancy, which is a common problem in Nigeria. And I think to talk about the escalation of the Niger Delta situation, this will actually depend on Buhari's initial approach. If he takes a reconciliatory approach, and we have to remember that the amnesty that was given to the Niger Delta militants, I think it's expiring this year, which means that Buhari will be charged either to renew it or to provide something even more attractive to the militant to keep them silent. But anything other than that, if he takes a confrontational approach, I think we will see more trouble in Nigeria, and the issue of unemployment, economy, electricity, infrastructure, all of them will fall behind, and security will once again be at the forefront.
Richard, maybe you can come in here as well. As we've just seen, Nigeria has deep-rooted religious issues, cultural issues, even regional issues. How is he going to navigate all this, in your opinion?
Fighting Boko Haram will not be seen as a declaration of war against the North, as he himself alluded to during after losing the election, that the sending of military into the northern region of the country meant declaration of war against the North. Those were political tyrants, that were said. And of course, now it behoves on him, to rein in the Boko Haram, and of course to ensure that stable security, is achieved in the northern region for economic development to take place. And of course, it has poverty to fight, because one of the major problems in the northern region, as we have said, is the issue of poverty, which of course is feeding into the crisis. And if we can improve the living conditions of people in that area, then of course we might be seeing a stable region.
Dr. We're looking forward. We've seen in Africa sometimes when an incumbent loses and somebody else comes in, the predecessor goes after the incumbent on corruption charges. Is this likely to happen in the Buhari-Jonathan scenario?
I think President Buhari, President-elect Buhari will not want to take that approach because it is an approach that will further entrench the divisions in Nigeria. I think President Buhari will want to take a reconciliatory approach. Because
regardless of whether Jonathan is corrupt or not, he will just push it aside for the sake of reconciliation.
I think he's going to put it aside because there is no really outstanding issue of corruption against Jonathan. Yes, there was an incident of 22 billion naira missing, which is still being searched, but that was not levied against Jonathan for stealing it. It is true, some money have been missing in the Nigerian coffers, but who took it? I think if President Buhari really wants to clean it up, he will have to investigate and see where that money went to.
To just add to what you've said, I think Major Muhammadu Buhari has made it clear that he's not going to probe the past leaders, or he's not going to probe into the past.
Why not?
Because if Nigeria has to move forward, I think we all need to come on board. We all need to...
So nobody will be held accountable for money that was siphoned?
No, what he said, what Buhari said is that he's not going to investigate anybody. But any case that is still in court pending, it would allow the process to finish the case. And I think for Nigeria, for us to move forward, I think we honestly speaking, we need to forget the past. We all need to come together, irrespective of our ethnicity, irrespective of our religion. We need to put all hands on deck to support Muhammadu Buhari, because we know for a fact that if Muhammadu Buhari goes into the past, it will destabilize his government, and we don't want that in Nigeria right now. We want to move forward because we need to build Nigeria, and we need to make Nigeria a better place.
Your last thoughts, sir.
Yeah, I think I will agree with them, but then we shouldn't allow this culture of impunity that has actually dragged us back for a very long time to continue. And if you go back, if Buhari has to prove the past, he has to start from his own political parties, because members of APC we are also members of PDP, and And if he starts investigating, then everybody will need to be investigated. We can even go back to the 80s, even 70s, you know, and we cannot do that, you know. So as it stands now, we must make sure that we start a new slate. Jonathan was one of his greatest falling was the fact that a lot of what the commissions and counter commissions were created to investigate certain crimes, and the reports of those commissions were never implemented or were never taken seriously. Nobody was brought to book under his administration in terms of corruption. Nobody had cases pending in the court. So if we are going to continue this way, then we're going to have a problem in our hands. And so Buhari, if he's coming to power, make sure that any corruption happening under his watch must be dealt with, and very well at that.
Gentlemen, thank you very much for your analysis as we look forward to the Buhari presidency. And that brings us to the end of this edition of Africa 360. Thank you to my guests for their contribution. Now tell us what you think. Were you surprised by Muhammadu Buhari's election victory? Is this really the start of a new era for Nigeria? Join the debate by going to our Facebook page or tweet us your views at A360_eNCA, or send us an email at africa360@enca.com. For now, it's goodbye and thanks.